Hi there, my name is Laura and I have got a unicorn uterus. I have been doing a series of recordings talking about miscarriage, pregnancy loss, pregnancy and labour. But this one I wanted to talk about my miscarriage after having a rainbow baby. So I'm going to put a trigger warning in here. I'm going to be talking about miscarriage, loss, the emotions and the physical presentation. This is still quite raw for me, so please be mindful for yourself and do dip in and out of it. You don't have to watch all the way through. So I'm going to start this journey right after giving birth. They encouraged me to have a contraceptive and I went for the implant, and for the first 9 months it worked fine. But when I stopped breastfeeding my son, that was when I started bleeding again. And it was really irregular. And I remember 1 month having 3 bleeds within it. And I put up with it for 6 months and decided enough was enough. It's got to come out. We were going to try anyway in the new year. So I thought, what's a few months earlier? Knowing that I've had difficulties in the past, I thought it's not going to harm to start earlier. So for the first month, my cycle was a bit shorter, but after that, my cycle came very quickly back into its normal rhythm. And for the first few months, we were just kind of casually trying. If it happened, great. If it didn't, that's fine. I couldn't help but hope at the end of every cycle. And I couldn't help the disappointment that followed. But in the December month, just before New Year's, we had had intercourse the week before. The app that I was using to track my cycles said I was going to ovulate. But after that, during ovulation week, my husband was poorly and was bedridden for those 7 days. So I thought that month was out of the count. It wasn't going to be successful. But when my period didn't come and it was 2 days late, I did a pregnancy test and was elated when it came back as being positive. I thought, that's just amazing. We weren't even trying, great. And I very quickly told my mum and my brother, and my husband told his mum too. And I even started feeling pregnancy symptoms earlier than I had done in previous pregnancies. I had nausea, which I'd not had in any of my previous pregnancies. To give myself some reassurance, I booked an early scan in a private clinic. And in the week of that scan, I'd noticed that my symptoms had started to reduce. As a nurse in a fertility clinic, I have a lot of ladies sometimes that ring concerned that their pregnancy symptoms have reduced. And I explained to them it's okay, they do fluctuate. So some days you can get loads of symptoms and some days you don't, as your body gets used to the fluctuating hormones. So I told myself this. I tried to reassure myself that this is what I'd say if I was answering someone else. So I just kind of waited until the pregnancy scan. It was an internal scan that they did because it was still too early to detect via the abdominal scan. Because it was a private clinic, they had a slave monitor, meaning that I could see what the sonographer saw as she was scanning. And because I've done the ultrasound training, I knew exactly what she'd be looking for. So as she was moving through my uterus and found the pregnancy sac, I knew that what she was seeing wasn't good news. So she was able to see a pregnancy sac, but it didn't contain anything. It didn't have a yolk sac, it didn't have a fetal pole, there wasn't a heartbeat to be seen. And at that stage, there should have been. It was measuring at 5 weeks and 2, and I knew without a doubt that I should have been 6 weeks and 2. We'd taken our son with us to the scan because there was no one else to look after him, and it meant that my husband didn't get the opportunity to ask the questions and didn't get to see the images properly. So I had to explain to him in our car journey home what it all meant. I just felt numb, and as a way of protecting myself, I kind of started talking about it in a very clinical manner, saying it's anembryonic, there's a pregnancy sac but no embryo within it. And I went to work the next day. I suppose I was still just a bit numb about it all. And people could tell they were asking me, Laura, are you okay? And I said, no, not really. And I told them, if they asked, I told them what it was. That day, I started with a brown loss that by the evening had started with a full red bleed. And work colleagues that knew about what was going on were offering me words of comfort. But I sometimes heard them say, I've never been through this, so I'm sorry, I can't sympathise. And I'm going to be honest, I stopped listening once they said, I've not been through this, because there was this little resentment, this ping in the back of my head that said, well, lucky for you, you've had 2 pregnancies and 2 children, and there's me here, 4 pregnancies and only 1 child to show for it. And that in my next pregnancy, that will be Gravida 5, Parity 1. Lucky for you. And I was thinking, my mum, lucky, she had 2 pregnancies, 2 children. A friend, 2 pregnancies, 2 children. Why couldn't that be me? Why did I have to go through this again? I thought I was in the clear. I thought that by having my son meant that I was over the worst of it, that it was going to be plain sailing from there. And I felt angry. I felt so sad and just wanted to scream, why me? I really leaned into thinking about it clinically. So instead of referring to it as a baby, I kept on saying an embryonic pregnancy or pregnancy tissue as a way of kind of coping. 3 days after I started bleeding, I did feel the pregnancy tissue come away, kind of felt wet and warm, and when I'd gone to the toilet I could see that. But my bleeding continued for another few days, 10 days in total, and I think that's probably because there was still a little bit of tissue left over, which came out around about day 9 or day 10. And I was kind of relieved at that in a way, because it meant I didn't have to go through any sort of intervention, didn't need to have medication or the surgical option, and my body did it. So I wish at that point that everything was happening, that I had taken time out to process it. Instead, I just moved on with my next cycle. I had to cling to hope to move forward into my next cycle. And what I realised I was doing was trying to leave behind that pain and looking on for a positive view of this. In hindsight, I should have sat there for a little bit in that messy emotions, because then the miscarriage I had most recently might not have knocked me off my feet so much. So the help that I've used so far, I've mentioned in all my videos. There is the Miscarriage Association and the Tommy's website. Both of them are looking into research as to causes of miscarriage. They offer information and support. And there is the Worst Girl Gang Ever. They have a podcast and a website full of resources and a survival guide for pregnancy loss. There's also a Unicorn at Uterus support group on Facebook for ladies that have come here looking for that. I hope to see you in my next video. And if you want to message me directly or leave a comment, I'll happily talk to you about your miscarriage too, or pregnancy loss.